Episode of Politics and Power. Let me tell you, there's nothing more powerful than to have control over your health. And so I'm super excited to have with me today these amazing guests who will be discussing health specifically in terms of how stress shows up in your life via your health and what to do about it. So I'm going to start over here with Dr. Yolanda. I'd love you guys to quickly introduce yourselves to our guests, and we can jump right into the conversation.
Sure. My name is Dr. Yolanda Lindsay, and I'm a board certified dermatologist, licensed cosmetologist, and hair wellness expert, and the owner of Lindsay Dermatology and Hair Loss Center.
Wonderful. Thanks for coming,
Sure.
Doctor. Yes.
Hi, I'm Dr. Felice Carlton. I'm a doctor of nursing practice, keynote speaker, certified integrative health coach through Duke University, and I run a company called Felice Carlton Enterprises.
Wonderful.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Helen Holton. I am a Gallup certified strengths coach and trainer, a professional certified coach and mentor through ICF. But what I do is I work with leaders to help them be the best that they can be, and it all begins with your health. Mental health, physical health, emotional health, spiritual health, and so helping leaders tap into what they do best to be the healthiest that they can be.
I love that. A table full of doctors. All right now, sisters. I see you all. Okay, so first question to you, and it's just open to the group, just conversational. Anyone can jump in. So, we're all living stressful lives these days. There's never enough time. We're working. We have kids, many of us. We have ambitions and goals. We have to deal with the stressors, particularly of us who have intersecting challenges culturally in this nation, perhaps race, gender, other things that we're struggling with. How is health impacted by the level of stress that we find ourselves under day to day? And is there any way to avoid it?
I could start.
Sure.
I'll speak from the clinical perspective. So patients come to me for certain symptoms that are socially appropriate for them to go to the doctor for. So their stomach's hurting, either diarrhea or constipation. Their neck's hurting. They have body aches. Their hair is starting to fall out. And I know you'll talk more about that. They just can't understand their mood. They're irritable. They're crying. They're snapping at people. Everything just spills out of alignment. And the first question I always ask someone is, how is your stress level? And usually those are the times that people just start to cry because they've been holding it in for so long. And we are supposed to have like this beautiful image on the outside as if nothing ever happens to us. And if it does, you bounce back and you keep moving. But life happens, people lose homes, they go through divorces, children die. Things happen that really take us to an emotional toll that we never thought. And physiologically, there are chemical processes going underlying the scenes that lead to symptoms that could lead to disease if not treated and managed appropriately.
And that's wonderful. I love what you said about bouncing back because I work with leaders and executives around work-life balance. And bouncing back is why I help leaders understand the significance and importance of building resilience.
Yes.
Resilience really is the secret sauce that keeps you and helps you rebound faster and be better than before you were knocked down. And so when you do that, it's a direct impact of how you're reducing stress, of how you're enjoying what you do more, and you have good balance there. So it really is a health issue from a perspective that we don't necessarily register as impacting what happens in our physical bodies.
You said something, Felice, that made me think of you, Dr. Yolanda. This issue of one of the ways that stress shows up in our lives is with hair loss. I remember when I was going through divorce, I had like a big old, looked like it was a patch in the back of my head that was like gone. I mean, like, what do you do in situations like that to be able to control that situation, if at all possible?
Sure. So what happens physiologically is whenever there's a major stressor to the body, like having a baby, going through divorce, losing a lot of weight, we go through a process of excessive shedding. And so it usually manifests about 3 months after the event. So it's really important to manage stress, self-care practices, spiritual practices like prayer, meditation. There's been research studies that show that these things can help to reduce stress and increase life expectancy. So very important to keep stress managed and also see a dermatologist. if that hair loss starts, because there are things that we can do to stop it early in its tracks. And a lot of people don't do that. They don't want to go to the drugstore. They want to go on Amazon. They want to go on YouTube and try this and try that. But I say get a diagnosis first and see us, because we can kind of help ameliorate a lot of those long-term effects.
Yeah, to follow up on that just really a bit. In today's culture, everybody's like a YouTube star, and everybody, and their mama think they have their own YouTube channel, and they think they can tell you something about your hair. I mean, how can people sort of determine what's real and what's not real out here in these internet streets?
Sure. So I think it's very important in my practice to practice evidence-based medicine.
Absolutely.
So,
Agreed.
we do studies, and we want to make sure that things are not just a placebo effect. So that's why I recommend for people to not go and try things, because in that 6 months that you tried castor oil, for example, you could have a type of hair loss for which castor oil is not helpful, and you've lost precious follicles, which sometimes may not grow back.
Ooh, Lord.
And so it could be, it's a serious matter.
Can't grow back. Okay, I heard that.
Come back
Very
here. Come back
permanent.
here. Come back here. But what's interesting about that, as we're talking about this subject, it brought to mind for me, 20, 30 years ago, when I was going through a very stressful time on my job. And I found myself going to allergists because I broke out in hives every day.
Yes.
So I'm walking around with antihistamines in my purse, never associating it to the stress on the job.
Yes.
Then my hair started falling out. Never associated with the stress on my job. And so sometimes understanding the value of work-life balance, and when those stressors at work begin to impact you physiologically, making the connection. Yes, it's important to go to the healthcare professional, but it's also important to either have a life coach or someone that you can go and talk about where you're stuck, what's challenging you, that may help to ameliorate and eradicate those physiological symptoms you're having. Because I decided to leave that job, that toxic environment. The hive stopped. The hair started growing back. And it was the first time that I made the connection between stress and work and life and health. So
And that's why I titled my book "Getting to the Root." Because in that case, the root cause is the toxic environment. When you get to the root cause, then everything else gets better. But we many times want to put a Band-Aid, and we're treating the symptoms, and we're not getting to the root.
Absolutely.
And one thing, sorry,
I'm sorry, Dr. Felice, I was just about to bring you in. Jump right in.
One thing I'd like to talk about is the fact that being okay with whatever healing means for you. And so I know in our culture there's a stigma, mental health, counseling, therapy, those type of things. And so when your child dies and your husband dies and all these major things going on in life, resiliency is important, because a lot of us were innately born with that. We've gone through adversity. That's our baseline. But there are major traumas that happen as a result. And I feel that high achieving women, especially those women of color for sure, need to be okay with whatever your process is. So like you said, the mindfulness, the spirituality, therapy, if it is medications, whatever your process is, there is no one prescription. There's no one right way, but being okay. And with the stressful jobs, taking time away, getaways, massage, what are we doing for ourselves? Oftentimes we do so much for other people, but we put no time on our schedules for ourselves. And if we do, we let other people take up that time.
But that's the real connection, and how resilience helps us make those shifts in connection, whether it's the body, whether it's the mind, whether it's your spiritual balance and what's anchors you to keep going forward. And so I love the connections between health, that whether it's your job, your family, your hair loss, whatever the issue may be. So when we talk about stigma, one of the big issues around health is the stigma of HIV in the Black community, and how it is killing us. And it doesn't have to, because there are remedies and things that you can do today. So I think just as hair loss, hiding or avoiding understanding what your status is detrimental to your overall health and well-being. And so it's just another place that we can look at to see, how can I be the best me that I can be by taking care of my health, and knowing your status, getting treatment, and getting into care is one of the ways you can do that.
Absolutely.
And what that speaks to is we like to avoid and not know what's going on. We think just because we don't go to the doctor or go to the mental health professional,
Right.
it goes away. It
It
does
does
not
not.
go
It does not.
away. And so you're better off getting a diagnosis, getting early so that you can get to the root of that problem early. So that speaks to really what you're saying there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And also just being preventative with your screenings, making
Yes.
sure that you are having those routine annual screenings. And when you
Absolutely.
notice symptoms, stop ignoring them because
Yes.
they lead to major problems
Absolutely.
later. Yeah.
Nip it in the bud.
Nip it in the bud right at the beginning.
Absolutely,
Well,
yeah.
ladies, this was an amazing conversation. Thanks for joining me today on Politics and Power.
Thank
See
you,
next
Thanks for
time.
Dr.
having me.
Avis.
Absolutely.
Thank you. This was great.